Victoria, how are you?
I'm doing well, Chris. How are you doing today?
Yes, I'm phenomenal. And that's what we're here to talk about today, isn't it? Is finding that peace of mind. We're both veterans. We're in a veterans mental health crisis. As I just said to you, me and some buddies, we're gonna row the Atlantic this year to shine a light for not just veterans, but people who are struggling with their mental health to say that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you hang in there, it's gonna blow you away. And everything will make sense. All what you've been through, your military experience, the highs, the lows. And I thought if I got your good self on the show, recommended by Anthony Samaroff, who's a lovely chap. He's been on the show, I think, a couple of times, that you could help me to share this message of light.
Absolutely. It's so important to focus on the positive, quote unquote, and on working on ourselves because we really live one life. And humans have the capacity to care so much about people. And when we look at sometimes we look at our friends or our acquaintances and we see that, they're struggling and having a hard time in life. Sometimes people don't see how beautiful they are. And if they were to see how beautiful they are in our eyes, like maybe people would be inclined to change their lives for the better. Because I you mentioned in a few podcasts that you mentioned at the end of your podcast that everyone is everyone should feel that they are like a legacy, because that's exactly what they are. This is this is one of the most important times right now to to find to find meaning in life, or to find that purpose, to find that self-fulfillment in life. Like, and so yeah, people don't some people don't realize, like you are right in the midst of where you're supposed to be.
Yes, it's when people say to me, because I was chronically addicted to crystal meth at one point, and I was so I, I we shouldn't use this word, but I was mad. I was completely insane. And people say to me, "Oh, you really turn your life around," and of course I don't say to them that no, I haven't. I've lived my journey and I learned from it, and because I did so, I honestly have the dream life that I never felt I could achieve it, Victor. There's always some, the darkness was always telling me that a good life was for other people.
You're absolutely right. And there are so many people who suffer in silence. And therefore, it's our duty and our service when we put ourselves on these platforms. And you've done a phenomenal job. Like, when I've heard your podcast this week, I can feel it. And it's not there's a point where it's like we spend a lot of time in our minds. Um, we've been conditioned to really, like, to really be driven by our minds and not by our hearts. But when someone feels how expansive someone's heart is, like yours, like that can be that little change of, like, you know what, not everyone's bad. Maybe I want to reach out to him. Maybe I want to, you know, just have a chat with him, talk with him. And and yeah, it's with people. So that's why it's so important to be on these platforms and to demonstrate that that there is a loving community. You're not alone.
Oh,
Um,
massively. The guys, you know, guys by guys, I mean guys and girls, obviously, that I associate with now, Victoria, we've just got all the time in the world for everyone. We, if there's anyone struggling, it's like, come and join us because, we're having a great time and we get it, we get it. We've all been there. Should we just cover your service time before we go on? Who
yeah.
who did you serve with?
So I served in the United States military army. I in high school I was looking for a way to. Um, Originally, I was going to join the Peace Corps. So I originally, but in mainstream society, it's very, college. The college influx, kind of happened around my time. I was born 1995, so around that time, the people around our age, it was like all of the different types of like college loans that were coming out, and so we had like an influx, like my generation's like an influx of people who took those college loans to go to college. But yeah, I got a scholarship for Army ROTC, and I was at University of San Francisco. I majored in finance and did the cadet program, which was interesting. It'd be considered reserve, so that was 2013 to 2017, and then 2017 I graduated. Went to military police BOLIC, which is basic officer leadership course. And then that's about 6 months, September, October. Yeah, September to January. And then it was quite interesting. My dad and I drove from Missouri to Washington in January. And then my first duty station was JBLM, and that was my last. So I was a platoon leader, an executive officer. I was in a 31 Echo detention battalion, and then I requested to move to criminal investigation division after. Um, and all of the good times, bad times, whatever times, like I used to resent it, but now I go, oh, I understand why everything that happened was was meant to happen in that way. And it took a lot of reflecting, and I was in denial for quite a lot of time with, the way that I was. So but it's and I will say military police officers are overall like have the highest rates of depression. And then there was a criminal in our jail who committed suicide. Um, I I actually, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if committing suicide or if taking one's own life, because I think I like saying taking one's own life better, because I
Probably
think that was,
probably for YouTube, we're safer to say taking one's own life.
yeah.
Um, if you say certain words a certain amount of times, boom, they they flag your video, and then you've got to appeal it and all this kind of stuff. But it's cool.
Oh,
Is
okay.
did you did you serve in the Middle East?
I did not. That was also something that I had to work on internally. So I had thought I was going to do well in the military, and originally, so my platoon got chosen to be the first platoon to go to like a like it was a deployment in Iraq, and we would pretty much set up like a, oh my goodness, a DHA, a detention holding area. I'm remembering all of the little lingo that we
Yeah,
had.
me the same.
Yeah, and so I was excited and nervous, but in my mind I wasn't sure. And that and the battalion command team switched. So the one who chose us, they switched off, and then a new battalion command team came after. And within a couple of months, the new guy brought me into my commander's office without my commander there, but the battalion commander told me, I'm really glad, that you trained your platoon and everything, but I'm going to switch you with, the other lieutenant in the company. And I was pissed. Like at the time I was pissed because the guy, it was another dude. He was older, and I had, I'm I took pride in I took pride in working really hard for my platoon. Like the most flashy type, like exciting training, my platoon, my soldiers would be like, "Oh man, we never got to ride in, a Black Hawk and when we were supposed to." And I was like, "That's it. I'm going to plan it for you." And so I was I was really focused on like wanting to get the best training. It was also a pride issue. I also really did deeply care for my soldiers. But and so I had, done all this training with my platoon sergeant and the squad leaders, and honestly, our platoon was awesome. Like I really, our platoon was great, and I think we worked really well together, despite, of course, like people argue and stuff. But um, so when that was a huge reality check for me, when I got switched, and then um, eventually that became an investigation, and I noticed that people started treating me differently, and so that was a huge moment of, you know what, like your shit stinks like everyone else, or like you're not as good as you thought you're. And so it's that it was that time of reflection for me. um
Why would you have been under investigation? What, for
so
for
oh
your competency or
so about 8 months later, I had actually told a sergeant I was working with. So I had an operations sergeant, and I moved to an executive officer spot in another company of the same battalion. And then I kind of I kind of willy nilly just told him what the battalion commander told me, and the platoon sergeant said, "Ma'am, if you don't walk out that door and tell someone about it, I'm going to tell someone about it." And I was like, "Oh, shoot." Um, you know, Past the point of no return. So so I ended up contacting an equal opportunity advisor, and two other female lieutenants came up, and we submitted our complaints with the battalion commander. And there wasn't any written documentation to show that there was, like, you know um, there was sexism on my end, but he two other people that he mentioned this to did admit that he said these things. And so I remember the I remember the brigade commander telling me at the end of the investigation that he was going to recommend a GOMAR for the battalion commander. I don't know if it actually happened.
what's a GOMAR?
And what's a GOMAR? It's I
Like
hope I'm saying this right.
a reprimand or something like that?
Yes, so it would be after his last command time, he would be finished. That would be the end of his,
Ah,
like,
okay.
of his command time, and then he'd get into some administrative position or something after that. Um, in the end, I understand why I was not supposed to go there, and I'm really glad I didn't.
Yeah, it's funny. Should we talk a bit, because we have a situation in the, well, it's not just the UK, but like no one ever talks about what is really going on with the military. Not just in terms of who do they actually serve? Could someone remind me? We thought it was about defending the homeland, and in the last 20 years, it's but let's not get into that. It's more that the military recruits from a pool of people, a significant percentage of whom have experienced severe childhood or childhood trauma.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, this is so important because I've sent my podcast, my other podcast, to some of my friends, and I'm going to continue to do so. And I know there's probably that feeling of, how did you get to this place where you're talking about these really deep dark things and also these really light bright things? And it's like, you hear me now, but you didn't hear me like in the past like year of when it was constant crying, looking into my inner child, realizing the, like, uncovering myself from the illusion of growing up, and coming to terms with exactly who I am, being completely honest with myself, and forgiving myself a little bit at a time. And it's not this huge epiphany where it's like one day and all of a sudden we're great people. It's little at a time. It's struggling to pull ourselves back up, like what you mentioned, because the military, they trap us. They put on this facade of like, look at all these really great commercials. We'll give you a bonus when you get in, basic training, or scholarship for college, and then all of a sudden, once you're done, they used you up. It's like all you get is like veteran holidays, and you may get disability if you put yourself, if you write enough documentation for it. But I want to say this. I want to say this here because I want to manifest people getting more disability. If, like, and the reason why I say that is because there are things that are really inspiring. If we work on ourselves, we raise our vibrational frequency. If we do that, we are helping everyone else raise their own vibrational frequencies. And I'll say that there was a super wellness course that I had with Dr. Edith Chan. She's a Qigong Tai Chi instructor. And she showed us a few charts of how someone who resonates in the frequency of 300 counterbalances 90,000 individuals who are in the frequency of 200 or under, which means that when we work on ourselves, we have the ability to counterbalance and help 90,000 individuals or more. So it's like, so when we talk about hope, like, there is direct hope. And it comes from, of course, it comes from doing the research, and it comes from, we're learning about frequencies, we're learning about water consciousness, we're learning about, like, all of these really interesting scientific things that we didn't know about, for quite a long time until now. And it's being uncovered. But it's like, it's inspiring. And as far as the personal journey, there are people who care about you, even if you don't think that there are people, like, there are people whom you don't even know, where they can meet you once and they will automatically love you for exactly who you are. And we are meant, every single one of us is meant to love both the light and the dark parts of ourselves. We're supposed to love, we're supposed to appreciate and feel gratitude for our past, regardless of how dark it is, regardless of if we were, physically, emotionally, mentally, abused, manipulated, neglected, abandoned. If if there are people out there who have done like really horrendous things, like I wrote down like, you know, if you've abused, if you've raped, if you've murdered people, if you've cheated, if you know, if you're a chronic liar, or you can find a way to love yourself, because there are people who will still love you regardless of all of the horrendous things that you may have done in the past. It's not it it doesn't mean that you're not worth living if you
Mm.
have done those things.
And
Because
it may be
oh
for,
yeah,
you know, maybe people haven't even done anything. It's that society is set up to destroy you. It's it's an energy battle. I say this a lot, and you know, these corporate elitists that have their own secret clubs and organizations, and the history of some of these institutions goes back to ancient Babylon, and they well understand how to control energy, because life is energy, vibration, and frequency. And what they're doing is they so long as they continue to manifest the darkness, they'll keep people locked into the 3D material world of thinking that you can buy your way to freedom, that more cars equal more happiness, bigger house. But and they're fundamentally denying people on purpose the understanding that no, paradise comes from healing the past, ignoring the future because it doesn't exist yet, and embracing and being grateful for the now, just like this beautiful conversation, you know? I wouldn't want to be anywhere else at any other time in history. This is what we live for. And if I'm ever feeling it, and we're all human, doesn't matter how advanced you are on the warrior's journey, you know, things come along and knock you, and people say, I just remind myself, Chris, get out the driving seat. You're not good at this. You've proved over many years you're not very good at life. So just step out the driving seat. Just let the beautiful energy in. Some people call that God. I don't care what you call it. Just let it in, because it will tell you, it will guide you in what to do. And and yeah, um, does I does this make sense to you, Victoria?
absolutely. I
Mm.
I got a little teary eyed.
Yeah. What let I'm just gonna I'm just a bit conscious of the time. So Victoria, you've got someone out there, right? They're possibly unhappy with their work. They got bills. They're a bit stressed. They're worried about, you know, constantly getting ill, like people do, and they're wondering why it's not working, why life's not work. What what would you suggest the first thing that they do is?
When I was learning about all of the things that we talk about, there was a point where I was so I was so I learned about this in such a small period of time. Like literally all of all of the uncovering all of the illusion of like everything going on in the world, and then finding out about myself internally is like everything internal is external. um I love that you say like we are the universe, we are God consciousness, all that is, however people want to say it. um but yeah, when I was learning about all of this, um I would I started I first was doing really well, and I was learning to like heal myself from it. I was talking to my inner child. I was feeling confident, but there was a point where I was just like, I don't know what to do with all of this information. I feel completely alone. I feel, even though I wasn't, and I'm never, and we are never, ever alone. I felt completely alone because I didn't have the connection yet, a deep, profound connection in which someone holds space for me to be able to talk about what's on my mind, and learning how to, get out of these little weird funks where we go into that little spiraling. And it takes is someone reaching out their hand and being like, everything's going to be okay, like, because you're here with me. And I did reflect in my therapy reflection today that in the end we all have ourselves, which is true. But however, we are meant to connect. Humans um, are naturally meant to work in groups, and this is seen in nature as well. And we've defied, the laws of nature, like, to this day. And so now we're coming back to it. We're coming back to realizing that we are nature, and to treating everything with respect and with gratitude, because we're just enjoying life, and um, we're enjoying filling ourselves with a cup of love. But yes, so reaching out to Anthony has been so life changing for me. And then I also, I took action, exactly what you said. I took action to take some courses to better myself, a super wellness course, the peak flow practitioner course. Um, oh my goodness, I'm in an economics course now. The first day was yesterday, but it's economics in healthcare and wellness. So it's talking about like how, our governments, or the healthcare system, has their, like how they're funding, or how, like, it basically talks about um, how the money is misput in different places, and what we are meant to do in order to, um, be liberty minded, lean more towards a free market, um, and have affordable health care, so that people aren't struggling. And then it goes into the whole allopathic, medical system and everything. It's going to be a lot. It was the first day yesterday, but yeah, it's what inspires you to learn, what are you really passionate about. um, like, if you don't feel like there are people around you who hold space for you or who love you, then reach out to somebody, reach out to a counselor whom you feel like you can trust. And when I already had Anthony in the back of my mind when I listened to one of his podcasts for the first time. I was like, well, if I do feel like I'm going to go crazy eventually, I know exactly who to contact. And so a few months later, when I was at that point, I was like, okay, I feel crazy. Um, that's when I reached out to him, to get a consultation. But um, it it's it's so important too, because just having even one profound, deep connection with someone will literally alter your life. Like, you will alter your life. And it started off with one. It started off with with me reaching out to Anthony, being, can I talk about, like, all of this crazy stuff that I'm learning and trying to make sense of it all. And now it's a whole community of people. Like, it's I was writing in my therapy reflection, just feeling grateful of how many people I've learned, I've met along the way. And it's not gonna end, because we have our whole lifetime to connect with so many people who are also incredibly loving and who are living in paradise.
Yes, good point. I was very fortunate. A very old friend of mine came into my life when everybody else had left. I mean, literally, the only people left in my life were drug dealers. Um, and he just like an angel. He just appeared in from literally from the dark one day. He said, "Are you all right, Chris?" And I said, "No, mate, I'm not." And he just took me in. It's just so nice to just let all of that struggle go, just be looked after, and you know, I've never looked back. That's my memoir, which is probably up there. Um, I can't remember which memoir. I think it's my first memoir, Eating Smokes, dedicated to my mate Rob. Um, he said, "Chris, look, I don't understand all this. He'd been a bit of a party head himself, but not to like the extreme lengths that I take and everything." And he's just like, "Look, I'm not going to try and tell you what to do or anything. I just want you to know that, I'm here for you." And he was one of my oldest childhood friends. And what is that? It's love, isn't it? You know, it's love, most powerful vibration of them all.
I heard that love is 432 hertz, and I know some people who actually tune their instruments now to 432 hertz to spread music, to spread love when
Yeah,
people
well,
listen to it.
in numerology, 432, 4 and 3 is 7, add the 2 is 9. So 9 is the number of the universe. It's
Oh
like
wow.
in quantum energy, it's the building block is not is kind of 9. Um, and will you come back on the show and we can have some more chats like this?
I would absolutely love to. And you're doing a great service for humanity. It's this is a beautiful it's beautiful to have these conversations, and it opens it opens my heart even more every
Yes,
time I do something like
and
this.
me too, and I love it. I'm with spirit today, and I just feel it. It's just everything's just perfect. It's just the way it should be, and you
I
know,
really felt it. I really did too.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a great place to be. So, friends out there, Victoria, you're available for coaching, aren't you, for people that want to learn more?
Absolutely. I have divinspiration.org, and
Yep.
and
We'll
it's
we'll put a link for your website and your socials below this video, folks. So
thank
I
you.
would strongly suggest if you want to take this further, if this is the penny's starting to drop now that a lot of this stuff's been hidden from us. Um, I'm also available. I'll be wearing a red carnation and I'll meet you in the station. I'm a poet and I didn't really think about
Know
that.
it. Oh.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Sorry.
Um, but no, seriously, if you want coaching with me, folks, just hit me up through my website. That just leaves me to thank Victoria massively, massively again. And friends, if you can please like and subscribe to the chat, like the video if you did like it. If you didn't, that's fine. Subscribe to the channel if it's helping you, and take care of yourselves. Much love.